What are you drinking?
Coffee.
Coffee.
You're listening to a Cult Talk Network podcast.
File access granted.
Welcome, all you believers, idealists, skeptics, and those of you who question the world around them. I'm Ty.
And I'm Bailey.
And this is Cult Talks Conspiracy, File 041, our follow-up to last file. We're talking more about Bigfoot. This is our Bigfoot-themed month that came about.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I'm excited. I'm really excited to go through the West Coast now.
Yeah.
Last episode, we went through like this big, long journey, and it was like a road trip of Bigfoots.
Right.
So
Right. That was the thing. I want to like take everyone through the like that eastern side of the country and the south and the north. And there's just so much in the West to it needs its own episode. Even this, I didn't even touch on all the states I wanted to.
Oh
because
my gosh.
there's that large North Pacific corridor that just dominates so much lore. So the episode really does kind of just focus on the Northwest corridor. So there's still a whole bunch left to cover in a future episode for sure. Colorado,
awesome.
Utah, New Mexico, all these states didn't even get touched on. Even Southern California has a pretty rich Sasquatch history, and it doesn't even get touched on. It's wild how much there is out west. Like I said, this is definitely something I can revisit at some point. Is just to kind of pick up the pieces and get what I didn't get in these two episodes. But it's crazy. We went so long, almost a year and a half of doing Cult Talk Conspiracy of never even a mention of Bigfoot except for a couple of episodes, and now we have a whole month themed. We're making up for all the lost time we had.
Absolutely. I think this has been cool. I'm so excited to hear about these. I definitely think having Bigfoot come back and like just covering like the Pacific Northwest, like that would be super cool, because there's like most of the Bigfoot lore and sightings that I've heard of come from the Pacific Northwest.
Right. And that's what this episode turned in. I was going to try to do the same as I did last time, go state to state, but you start reading and it's like, I was like, okay, I just need to focus on the on the North Pacific, because that's where everything is. That's where like the bulk of it is. And California, Washington, Idaho, these places are really where a lot of this takes place. I couldn't split it up. I just had to do this. So
I've got
definitely the West Coast didn't get as much attention as the other three regions did, because that small portion just dominates the lore.
Oh my gosh. I've got family that lives out in Washington, and they like to go hiking.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have to ask him, be like, have you ever seen Bigfoot? You ever thought about it? Like,
well, the Pacific Northwest, and another thing, I talk about all the time, is like embracing the legend. And the Pacific Northwest has done that in spades. I mean, that's a big part of their like tourist economy is Bigfoot. I mean, it's everywhere. It's billboards.
Oh my gosh.
The National Forestry Service has signs and stuff. Bigfoot areas. They have laws protecting Bigfoot against hunters and things like that. I mean,
what? I didn't know about that.
Yeah. There's actually laws in place. You can't legally kill a Sasquatch. Some people think, oh, that's them admitting existence. Other people think, oh, it's just a publicity thing.
No, I think people are out there really seeing them. Like, Jesus Christ, if they have to make like that big of a deal where like, no, we have to enact it into law. Like somebody's seeing something. So
it's labeled as an endangered species on the on a lot of the websites out there. I mean, they fully embraced it. I had a friend of mine to go out there a few years back, and they sent me pictures when they was out there of like all the shops you'd go to, and it was just there's just Bigfoot burgers you can get at places. There's just T-shirts and keychains and stickers and all the gougeables. Just stick Bigfoot on it. So they fully embraced it. Kudos to them. I say it all the time. Just that's how you make some money. There's way too many places with really cool legends who just are really missing the boat on that.
I know, I hate it when the worst ones for me are the ones that like are embarrassed about it or like, no, we can't talk about it. It's like, yeah, you should talk about that. Like,
you definitely should.
See something, say something. That is the motto.
Absolutely. But yeah, that's right here. We're going to be talking about mainly California, Washington, Oregon, Idaho. Those locations. I know there's some people that maybe are wondering where the rest of it is, but it'll come when it comes eventually. I mean, I'm leaving this whole series open to pick up the pieces, various different states. In the last episode, I didn't even hardly touch on West Virginia, which has a very rich history of Sasquatch, or North Carolina, which also has a very rich history. So, I mean, there's things that maybe aren't mentioned in these, but that's what follow-ups are for. So,
Absolutely.
we'll get to them eventually. Maybe we'll do this again next year. We'll do another April. We'll do another April 2. But we'll see how things play out. But are you ready to talk about the northwestern Sasquatch, Bailey?
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Go ahead and lace up your hiking boots, and let's go ahead and let's unseal File 041, Shadow Giants, the mysteries of the northwestern Sasquatch. Many consider the western part of the U.S., specifically the Pacific Northwest, to be Bigfoot country. When I was a kid growing up, I watched many Sasquatch documentaries, In Search of, Monster Quest, all that stuff. And you usually see them traipsing around the Pacific Northwest because it's just ancient forest out there.
Yeah.
It's primordial. I mean, people talk about when you go out there, it's like entering another world. I feel that way when I go to Hawking.
Oh, really?
Which is a state forest, near us. I mean, it's just so dense and ancient, and you just really believe that there's things out there that we have not seen. I mean, to me, just seeing an area like Hawking Hills is crazy because there's like parts of that have yet to even be touched.
Oh yeah.
And it's so minuscule compared to the area that is the Pacific Northwest corridor, which is massive. I mean, if you look at it on a map, it is massive. Like, people go missing in that all the time, and it's so easy to tell why. And it's so easy just to get lost out there. People talk about, they're on a trail. People have been found. You're on a trail. You step off, then you're lost.
Oh,
because
no.
it's so dense. I mean, it's that dangerous out there. And you can look at it and you can really believe that there are things hiding in that area. There's some things we talk about in the last episode. There's some areas that you have these Sasquatch or wild man legends, and it's like, well, how is something like that hiding in this area? But I've never found myself questioning that when we're talking about the Northwest.
Yeah, I have to agree. There's a ton of missing 411 stories that start like that, where it's like you're just on the trail and then you step off and you're poof, gone.
Yeah.
And like I mean, all I can do is just echo everything that you've said, but like, yeah, 110% agree. Like, there's enough of an ecosystem out there that something could sustainably live a life and live generations of lives. So,
have you ever gotten lost in the woods? Have you ever been lost in the woods?
Not in the woods, but in Disneyland, yes. That's a story for a different time.
I've been lost in the woods as a kid.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, like me and my cousins, we'd go out in the woods, and you get turned around and lost. You go in the woods for an hour, and you end up in there for a couple hours. But I was never in areas where it was like a dire situation of you're not getting home. You might come out, on a road that's maybe a mile or so from your house, and you just have to walk up the road to it. But it's so easy to get turned around in the woods because everything you get in there, and it is disorienting. Everything eventually does look like everything else. If you're not like an experienced woodsman, I mean, a tree's a tree,
right? Yeah,
you're not looking for the moss grows on this side, and the leaves are turned this way, which means the sun. You're not looking for that kind of stuff, and it gets very disorienting. So, I mean, it's just one of those things. The Pacific Northwest is such an interesting place, and we've covered it. Mount Shasta many times here. There's 3 or 4 episodes we've done about Mount Shasta, and just the mystery that does lie out in that region. And it's just ancient forest. People describe it as ancient forest because it's just so untouched.
Yeah. I've seen videos where like some hikers have like brought rope with them or like tape to like tape
Mhm.
off like where they're at, and they'll just follow the rope back just because the forest is that dense and just even sometimes like that unwalked that like that is literally your lifeline to getting out of there.
Yes, absolutely. So, since the first settlers ventured into the West, there have been stories of ferocious wild men lurking in the forest. But not just English settlers, as during the 16th century, Spanish explorers returned with tales of waking in the night to eyes watching them from the darkness. Los Vigilantes Oscuros, the Dark Watchers. Now, we touched briefly in the last file on the painted rock mural, which was created by the Yakutsk tribe at the Toll River Indian Reservation. The family, a group of Bigfoot-like creatures local tribesmen called the Hairy Men. And it's believed to be 500 to 1,000 years old. Did you look that up?
I'm sorry, which one?
The painted rock mural.
No.
We talked about it on the last episode briefly. It's very interesting. It's just this. It's between half or a century old, or 500 to 1,000 years old.
Gee whiz, that's a bit of a difference.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was weird too.
Oh,
They can't,
okay.
put a pin on it. But yeah, so it's to many believed to be like an early depiction of Sasquatch. And like I said, the local tribes call them the Hairy Men. So it's interesting to think that these legends go back that far. America has a rich history of Sasquatch, dating back to the earliest indigenous tribes to roam what is modern-day Pacific Northwest. The Lumi people have the Sumukus. It's a Native American word. I'm very bad at pronouncing those. I'm not going to hide it. They were a race of nocturnal giants that would prey on children who entered the forest alone at night.
Ruh-roh.
The Shahales tribe had the Sasquatch, shape-shifting protectors of the forest, commonly credited as the origin of the Sasquatch name, now used to describe these wild beasts. But one of the most popular indigenous legends from the western U.S. is that of the previously mentioned Skookums. So popular of a legend during the early white exploration that U.S. President Theodore Roosevelt would write about them in his book, The Wilderness Hunter. Turn my
gracious Ty.
I know, that was an egregious podcaster fail.
The Skookums. That's interesting that we have a president that's written about them. Did he have a sighting? Did he see them?
No, I don't. I've always heard the stories that Theodore Roosevelt had a sighting.
Mm-hmm.
It's not documented, but there is a very interesting conspiracy theory that during his administration, Teddy Roosevelt is noted for creating the national forest, the park.
That's
reserve.
right. Yes.
So there is a conspiracy theory that he did encounter a Sasquatch or knew of the Sasquatch, and that these nature preserves are actually like Bigfoot preserves.
Oh, I love it. Now we need to rename the National Forestry Division to the Protect Sasquatch Division. I love it.
Well, there's I've been reading a lot of Harry Potter lately, and there's the Sasquatch do have a pretty big part in the Harry Potter lore when it comes to the Fantastic Beasts series.
Oh yeah,
which take place in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The Bigfoot are like a magical race, and they're actually kept away from humans.
Interesting, kind of like centaurs.
Yeah, they're like centaurs would be in like the mainline books. But so they but the conspiracy theory is that these nature preserves that were set up all over the U.S. actually hold populations of these Sasquatch creatures, which can do harm to humans.
Oh, wow.
So as a way to protect both us and them, these preserves are set up. And that's also falls in line with the missing 411 thread, where that's why people go missing in these nature preserves, is they're getting scooped up by Sasquatch, and the government doesn't investigate them because
they're like,
that's what they do. Yeah, that's what they do.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh man, Ben and
That's
I.
why they made these little areas.
Gee, what Ben and I have talked about our dreamland property of like 5 million acres, and like how we want to make part of it a preserve area and whatnot. So I wonder if we do that, if they'll like just put Sasquatch in our area. If so, I won't be able to have the guinea pig farm. So
Yeah. Sounds like a waste of land. You put your Dollar General out there.
no, that's my
Dollar
land.
General, nice Walmart.
No, thank you. I'm
That's
good.
what I'd do with it.
I'm all right. I like
Used car lot to go good out in a place like that.
Yes. All right.
Legend describes the creatures as giant, hair-covered monsters with a hunger for human flesh, set to hunt atop Mount St. Helens. In his book, Teddy told a story of a German beaver trapper who found himself and his companion stalked by a foul-smelling bipedal creature that would eventually invade their camp and snap the companion's neck.
Oh.
The trapper, named Bauman, was noted by Teddy as appearing honest about his account and fearful of the creature he encountered. In the book, the president described the creatures as being half man, half devil, which does actually kind of come up at later in the story, the description of them being like a devil. Like, I don't know if people are being literal about that, like they're demonic in nature, or that they're just the aura they're coming. It's a demonic aura that they're putting off, an evil sense.
Well, a lot of people say like, and you talk about this too, like in the encounters episode that we did of our own encounters, like people having like this overwhelming fear, like when they see it or they're around a Sasquatch. So I mean, I could see those two things like correlating and that being a key factor of it.
Absolutely. But one of my favorite Bigfoot encounters is known as the Ape Canyon Siege. In a steep rocky gorge located on the southern side of Mount St. Helens, prime Skookum territory, Fred Beck and his group of miners camped in a remote cabin in 1924. This cabin they actually built themselves. This was kind of like their spot. They've been coming to it for years, and they just had a little mine there that they were pretty successful. The mine they had was very fruitful. And this was just like their spot. They had a cabin they built. They described the cabin as being very sturdy. So for about a week, the men heard the sound of a booming thump that would be repeated from the surrounding forests. This would happen day and night. They would just hear this loud booming thump sound. Many people who've read this account back, attribute it to being the wood knocks. Are you familiar with wood knocks?
Oh yeah, I think we touched on this on the last episode where they'll use like sticks of wood and like beat them together to communicate. I don't know if it was the last episode, but I feel like we've talked about it in an episode prior, or maybe...
I think it's been mentioned before. Yeah. The sound was not familiar to the men and even frightened some of them. They would begin carrying their rifles with them everywhere they went.
Don't blame them.
But despite this, none of them were willing to outright abandon the trip, as they were too excited with the success of it so far. They were pulling in gold. None of them were willing to abandon it. One of the men had a terrible toothache, it was noted, and he was in great pain the whole time. His other, his friends had, asked him, can you, maybe we should go back. And he was quoted saying that neither God nor the devil would get him away from this area.
Oh, well, don't we have news for you, buddy?
But one evening would leave them wishing they had left. While visiting a nearby natural spring, they would encounter a giant, hairy creature watching them from the trees. One of the men would be so startled, he would take a shot at the creature, which retreated into the woods. That night, the miners agreed to leave in the morning at first light. But they were awakened by the sound of primal yells and large footsteps from outside the cabin. Soon the structure was rocked by boulders crashing down the roof, while punches and kicks cracked the walls of the cabin. The men were now in a battle for their lives. Using the gaps in the walls of the built cabin, the men fired their rifles at the shadows circling them. They did actually make a point. They were being attacked. This cabin was under siege. They made a point, however, to only fire their guns in response.
Oh.
So when the creatures attacked, the men would fire their guns. They'd shoot at them. But if the creatures weren't outright attacking the cabin, the men held fire. They ceased fire.
Oh, okay.
And they had hoped the creatures would realize that they were only defending themselves.
Okay, yeah, I could see that.
But the creatures did not relent.
Right. That's actually
good.
That's actually pretty smart considering like how terrified these men may have been.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's very clear thinking.
Yeah. Very, very good. I like that. That's something I sure as fuck wouldn't have thought of. So...
Yeah, right. Same. I would have never thought of that.
Keep shooting! It's getting
closer! Exactly. A large pole was positioned against the door, the only thing keeping the beasts from forcing their way inside. The men pleaded to leave if the creatures, which they now referred to as mountain devils, would leave them alone. As dawn broke, the attack seemed to come to an end. The men gathered what supplies they could carry and cautiously walked away from the cabin. Now, Fred Beck claims that as they made their way out of the gorge, they spotted one of the mountain devils watching them from the cliff. And they were terrified. They thought it was a scout. They thought that they had been found. So Fred Beck used his 30-30 Winchester to take aim, and he shot the creature dead in the chest. And the creature actually fell down the gorge. And the men just didn't look back. They got out of there. All 5 men made it safely back to their hometown of Kelso, Washington, where their story became that of a legend. Now, this sort of led to an early precursor to something we'll talk about here a little bit, which is Bigfoot Mania. Bigfoot Mania mainly took place in like the 70s, 80s. It was insane. And it even kind of cropped up again in like the early 90s. In the early 90s, Harry and the Hendersons. Have you ever seen that movie?
No.
With John Lithgow? Oh, that's a great flick. That was a big movie from my childhood.
I haven't seen 90% of the movies that you guys have all seen.
I'm surprised you haven't seen Harry and Henderson. That's a good one.
I've been doing pretty
good. Wholesome flick.
Oh, good. We just watched Groundhog's Day back in February for like the first time ever. And everyone was like, "You're sure you've never seen this?" No, I've never seen this movie. But that's interesting. Okay, so what is Harry and Henderson about?
Harry and the Hendersons is about this family, the Hendersons, which is John Lithgow plays the dad. They're on a camping trip and they find a Bigfoot, like big Bigfoot, and they like kind of adopt it into their family.
Oh my god!
And then like there's a cryptozoologist like following them around trying to like capture the creature, and it's just a dumb 90s family comedy.
Oh my gosh, is it like?
But it's a great flick. I have fond memories of that movie. But that kind of kicked off this wave in the early 90s where there was a ton of these really bad, like made for TV, direct to video, Bigfoot family movies that came out.
Oh my god! Oh wow! Okay.
There was a ton of those in the early 90s. I probably saw them all, but Harry Henderson's my favorite. But no, this attack kind of kicked off this Bigfoot mania thing where people would actually, put bounties on Sasquatch and stuff, and just became this big thing. It really kind of brought Bigfoot into like the modern age, but none more so than in 1958 when Jerry Crew, who was actually this actually kind of what really kicked off in the modern era, the Bigfoot mania craze. Jerry Crew was a logger in Humboldt County, California, and one morning he went to site and he found that there was these gigantic footprints all over the logging site. These footprints were 1.5 feet long. They were buried 4 inches into the mud.
No.
And they actually also found that along with these footprints, several like large barrels of oil had been like just moved.
Oh.
Like these hundreds of pound barrels of oil had been like just moved about the camp without really no explanation. Like something strong had to just pick it up and set it somewhere else. Now, these footprints became national news. They would actually make such newspapers as the New York and Los Angeles Times. And they're actually credited for coining the term Bigfoot. Before this, it was Sasquatch or Hairy Man or Wild Man or, one of the various indigenous names for the creatures. But the term Bigfoot actually came from the Jerry Crew cast.
Oh, okay.
Now, these footprints are very controversial in the sense that they have such resonance in the Bigfoot lore. It's a big part of the history. It's where we got our name of for the Bigfoot. But it's actually after Jerry Crew passed away, his family would actually find in his possession these gigantic carved wooden shoes he made. Yeah, these
No.
giant wooden carved Sasquatch feet, basically. That it's believed what he did was he would put them on, and then they would tie a rope from a truck. He would grab the rope, and the truck would start taking off, and that way he would have to increase his stride to make his stride appear
Oh.
bigger. And he's also putting more weight down, and it's making these prints that look like they're 2 feet wide. I mean, 2-3 feet across. These huge strides.
Oh yeah, and heavy. Heavy too.
Heavy, yes, heavy. So that's actually the belief. Now, some people say that he had them, he made them afterwards. Maybe he made them as kind of
this
a
is what
research tool. I'm going to make what these things could look like.
Right.
So very contentious. Jerry Crew, kind of controversial figure in the Bigfoot mythos, because he was known as kind of a prankster kind of guy, anyways.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, that sparked Bigfoot mania, and hunters would descend on the area in hopes of spotting the creature responsible for the tracks. But for most, the creature would evade their sights until the events of one October day in 1967. In the summer of that year, cowboys Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin began filming a sort of early docudrama about cowboys and a Native American tracker hunting Bigfoot.
Okay.
The film was shot near Six Rivers National Forest, which is the area where Jerry Crew found the footprints.
Oh, okay.
And it would actually include flashbacks to the Ape Canyon incident. So this movie was going to be kind of like a history, like a journey through the history of Bigfoot, but it's told as part of this adventure film.
Okay.
Which is kind of a similar storytelling thing I've seen in many of Bigfoot movies. The Boggy Creek movies do this. Night of the Demon does that. So I mean, it's kind of this storytelling thing that's used in Bigfoot movies for some reason. I can think of 4 or 5 that have done it. So it's really interesting that that's kind of a mechanic that just found its way into Bigfoot cinema. But just interesting. On October 20th, Patterson and Gimlin rode on horseback with cameras in hand to Bluff Creek. At 1:30 p.m., while following the east bank, they rounded a bend where they spotted a figure standing on the opposite bank. Their horses reared up in fear, nearly throwing the men to the ground. So the horses could actually sense this thing, which is something that you kind of, if you look more into that, you'll find other accounts of this, of people having dogs or horses. People take horseback rides through the West, of animals reacting to these creatures.
Oh, absolutely.
Either in an aggressive or a fearful manner.
Listen,
they're afraid of them or scared.
If my animals are absolutely not, I'm going near that. I'm not going near that. Then no, we're not going. We're just we're staying back. I trust my animals enough. Absolutely not. Even if they're and they know this, so Gypsy can sometimes get away with being no.
Well, I think the last episode we had 3 or 4 creatures that specifically sought out to kill dogs. So I mean,
because they're a warning system. Oh yeah, they're a warning system. Oh my gosh, no, especially horses. Horses are naturally really skittish, but they are really good senses of danger too. Where they're nah, I feel it. I feel the danger. We ain't going. So
right. Patterson grabbed his camera and rushed into to get closer, while Gimlin grabbed his gun in the case that the creature would attack. They were fearful that maybe this thing, being a wild animal, would take after him. Coming within 60 feet, Patterson steadied the camera and captured the crown jewel of crypto evidence. a bipedal, 6-foot-tall, ape-like creature covered in dark reddish hair with long arms and pronounced breasts. This creature would come to be known as Patty. It's kind of unanimous when you watch the video. Many people cite it. It's unanimous that what we're actually seeing is a female Sasquatch. You can kind of see it's got breasts, and that's where we get the name Patty. It's the female. For nearly 60 seconds, they captured Patty as she strode across the bank and then disappeared into the forest. In the decades since, many investigations have dissected the film, now titled the Patterson-Gimlin film, with some saying it is definitive evidence of the elusive beast, while others claim it to be a well-perpetrated hoax. Noting at the time, the duo were in the process of filming a movie about Sasquatch. Surely they would have a suit to use.
Yep.
There's been many people come forward saying that they made the suit. There was a friend of theirs who came forward saying he was actually in the suit.
Yep.
During the filming of it. What are your thoughts on the Patterson-Gimlin film? I don't think we've ever discussed the film aside from that brief mention in the iceberg video.
We mentioned it. You can definitely see where like it would be female. I love the stride of it too, because she's walking like someone just pissed her off too, like motherfucker.
Yeah, that's interesting because Patterson actually talks about how you can't really see it in the video because of the quality of cameras at the time, but she actually turns around and has like a look of disgust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like she's seeing something that's beneath her.
The stills I'm looking at of it, like when her face is turned, you can't really see it all that well, but you can definitely see where the face is like scrunched.
Yes.
Which I'm not a body language expert, but the body language experts I listen to say that when a human face is scrunched like that, it's either disgust or anger. So I don't know. Here's the thing for me with the Patterson video. It can honestly go either way for me. Do I think it's real? You kind of got me on a crossroads on that one because like, no, like, I don't know. I could see it being real. And a part of me like wants it to be real so bad that that's part of the reason I can't believe it. And it's almost too good to be true at that point. I'm going to go out on a limb and actually say it is real just because of all the activity that we've seen out there. And, like, you get someone, like, you get a friend who's like, oh, yeah, I was in the suit. Meanwhile, like, the old TMZ back in the day is paying me like $5,000 to say that I was in the suit. Like,
Right.
you never know. But I think it's a real video. I think it's real. Part of me is being a really bit hopeful about that one, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's real.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I've met Bob Gimlin before, and he seems like a really cool guy. I've met him just kind of in passing at a Bigfoot convention I went to at Hocking Hills, and he seemed like a honest dude, just like an old man, kind of that old cowboy vibe about him. But I mean, at the end of the day, though, I mean, he's making good money off this thing. So there's that thing where it's like, if it is fake, he's definitely profiting off of it. But I always really do consider it to be legitimate. I've never really questioned it as a Bigfoot enthusiast. I just never found myself questioning it to be fake. I don't know. I've never really had that thought in my head. I've seen many documentaries or investigations or dissections where people claim that you can see certain things like zippers, or you can see splits in the suit. People talk about certain frames you can pause it and you can maybe see a zipper, or you can see where the head meets the body. Stuff like that.
I love that zipper theory because like I'm looking at a still from like the original footage. It is so fucking grainy.
I know, right?
So grainy.
It's wild. It's wild.
And like they're actually
people
like
going to zoom out on things.
Yeah, if I'm remembering right, they actually had to zoom in to get like what the creature actually was, because they were actually, if I'm remembering correctly, they were a good bit away from it to where like they had to actually
60
zoom
feet
in.
was he was 60 feet away from it, so it wasn't that far, but it was still pretty far, especially for cameras at the time. I mean, they didn't have too great capabilities, so I mean, it was still a good bit away for something like that. And it's just a handheld camera that they had at the time. So
yeah, and I mean, okay, here's the thing. Yes, they're going out and they're filming a Bigfoot movie. Where else are you going to go to film a Bigfoot movie but Bigfoot country? Like,
right,
that's kind of that one's
to,
a cheap excuse for me.
Yeah, and to that point, though, it's even like, going off, trying to be devil's advocate here.
Mm-hmm.
That's also one of those things, like, they just so happen to be going out to film a Bigfoot movie
Mm-hmm.
and saw a Bigfoot. So, I mean, there's multiple sides of the coin.
Yeah.
I just, my heart of hearts always believed it to be true. But I get the skepticism. I get the questions, the people that came forward. I mean, it's just very interesting. It's wild that, a duo of men were out to shoot a Bigfoot movie and captured what many people call the most definitive Sasquatch footage to ever be filmed. And this is really back in the 60s. So, I mean, it's crazy that it has yet to be topped even still.
Oh, yeah. The details alone, like, oh my gosh, yeah. No, so I think it's real. Like, the more and more we talk about it, the more I'm like, yeah, that's probably real. Yeah.
Yeah. But real or not, the country found itself gripped in Bigfoot mania, which saw the cryptid become a bona fide American pop culture icon. TV, movies, toys, fast food items, ads, books by the thousands, countless documentaries of people hoping to capture evidence as significant as that is seen in the notorious film. We've covered a lot of different legends here over the course of these two files. And I've kind of tried to make it a point to talk about the variations.
Oh, yes.
Now, one of the interesting things, there is a number of interesting things about the Northwest Sasquatch, but it seems like it has a much wider territory than the other ones, because you read about the Northwest Sasquatch and you can include, Washington State and Northern California and Idaho and, Utah, all these places. And it seems like it's one creature, or like it's the same creature. Like, not that it's, one Bigfoot making its way around, but it's one species.
Right.
Whereas when you go over to the north and the east and the south, you have these like broken up kind of subspecies, which is in part of theory, because the East Coast is more populated by us humans, so the populations of the Sasquatch are kind of more broken up. So maybe that does leave more room for variants and things of that nature. But the Northwest Sasquatch, there's similarities between each one. Like, it doesn't seem like they're seeing these different subspecies. They're seeing like a particular creature.
Yeah.
Many eyewitnesses who have been lucky enough to see the creature while trekking through the dense, ancient forests of the Pacific Northwest have reported much more than the typical cryptid sightings. I'm going to take things back a bit to 1924 and our harrowing account of the Ape Canyon attack.
Going way back.
Fred Beck provided a very detailed account of the incident in his own words in a 1967 interview, which I'll link down below. It's very detailed. He basically goes through like everything that happened during the attack and before and after, and it's very interesting to read about what happened before. So he recounted that in the time they had spent around Mount St. Helens, he had actually experienced several psychic events.
Okay.
Yeah, according to Beck, they found the location that they would begin to mine way back in 1922, when the spirit of a great indigenous man wearing buckskin appeared to them, who they called the Great Spirit. The men followed a white arrow that would lead them to the location of the gold. But they grew frustrated by how difficult the journey to the treasure actually was. So they cursed the Great Spirit.
Oh, don't do that.
Accusing it of misleading them. Then they saw the arrow land near Ape Canyon. They ran to the area and began to set up their mine when the Great Spirit appeared to them once again, but was not happy. It said, "Because you have cursed the spirit leading you, you will be shown gold, but it is not given to you." A large locked door appeared before the men, and as the Great Spirit disappeared, so did the door. The men were undeterred and mined the area to great success. Beck believes that in the years prior, he and his associates were just simple, hard-working men, and that is why the Great Spirit came to them in the first place. But after disrespecting the spirit and plundering the gold from the canyon, they manifested something horrifying. In many legends, Sasquatch is depicted as a protector of nature.
Mm-hmm.
It maintains the balance.
Yes.
And Beck believes that they provoked this protector with their greed, even believing the booming thumps that we mentioned that they heard weren't actually sounds, but telepathic warnings from the Sasquatch.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so Sasquatch has like these telepathic powers. Now, I do have another account here. So with Bigfoot, we'll talk more about the weird kind of things that set this apart from the other ones. But in 2007, a husband and wife named Donnie and Lynn talked about an encounter they had with a Sasquatch in the Okita National Forest Park when they saw a large, bulky, hairy beast covered in brown fur with 2 white eyes.
Oh, interesting.
They were immediately frightened. They saw this gigantic thing before their eyes, but then they heard a feminine voice in their head. They both heard it simultaneously. It was a feminine voice, very comforting, and it said, "Do not be afraid. You will not be harmed. But please do not come closer."
Oh.
And this is actually something I read about in another account. A man was camping in the Pacific Northwest, miles away from any civilization, and he was in his tent. It was late at night. He began to hear like things hitting it, little pebbles and sticks breaking around, and things of that. He was terrified. He got up, turned on his light, and then he heard in his head again this like very soft, feminine voice that told him, "Do not be afraid. You're not going to be harmed. We're just passing through. Please stay in your tent. We'll be gone soon."
Don't like. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the Men in Black.
Really?
It really does with the telepathic communication.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And whatnot. That was the first thing that I thought of. Secondly, like I wouldn't be shocked if the couple had encountered a mother. Just because it sounds like very maternal. Like, please stay back. Like, I don't want you near me. I've got something over here. I don't know. Something to me, like it has a very maternal spirit to me. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it's a very soft, comforting,
Mhm.
feminine voice. I mean, I could
Yes.
see getting drawing that parallel.
Mhm.
The fact that there's multiple accounts of it having this like soothing, like feminine human voice is very interesting.
Yeah. I think it or she knows that like they're about to freak out. Like they're
Yes.
seeing a big thing and like that's probably why they come so calmly too. Is like, I don't mean you harm, but if you want to fuck around, you can find out. Like that's also the vibe that I'm getting.
I definitely can see that. Maybe it, like you said, it has a child, it's protecting,
Mhm.
things of that nature. Now, other people talk about being able to sense the presence of Bigfoot preceding a sighting. And you brought that up. We talked about that
Mhm.
in a later episode. It's like they can feel this energy.
Right.
And it's said that maybe, as the legends will call, many of these indigenous legends refer to Sasquatch as being the spirit of the forest. So many people question maybe it's the spirit of the forest in a literal sense. Maybe it is some kind of like spiritual being, like a multi-dimensional being.
Yeah.
So there's if you look through indigenous legends, there's a lot of interactions between Sasquatch and indigenous people. Some violent, but there's more so peaceful ones. If you look into Native American legend, you have of course like the stone giants, the skookums, which are horrific creatures. But you also have like a lot of interactions where these things are protectors. They're peaceful until provoked, things like that. And according to modern indigenous people, they believe that we've actually encroached so much on the nature that the connection we had with nature has been severed.
Oh, I believe that.
And that's why we no longer have these interactions with these legendary creatures or these spiritual encounters. You thinking about like back to like magic. People talk about magic. Much more in centuries past have there been these of magical or fantastic things happening that we don't see now. And we look at it as modern day people as like, oh, they were stories, they were misinterpretations of things that maybe could have actually happened.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But like the thing
But there's a lot of people that, go ahead.
The thing is we're all so close-minded now that, we here's my soapbox. Hang on real quick.
Go ahead.
Like, we're so close-minded to the fact that, like, now that we have science and technology and we have Google, which has an answer for everything, and while those things are absolutely wonderful and that's great, there are some things that really are just unknown and magical for the sake of using the word. And part of that goes into is like we were created on the land and the land was to be sacred and we were to basically live our entire life off the land, eat, drink, feed, even go back to it at the very end of our life. And we've gotten so far away from that now in modern culture that it is very hard to believe when we encounter something like a Bigfoot or Sasquatch or something magical, because it's like that's not supposed to happen anymore. We're kind of spoiled and, in a very blunt term, a little arrogant to the magic that can be had in this world, because we're just so used to having an answer that now not having an answer just doesn't compute with us anymore. It doesn't sit peacefully.
Oh,
So I could
absolutely.
totally believe that we've lost our connection, with nature and with the forest, because we've just kind of gone over to the system where we can have all of the answers provided for us, whereas we have to, I could go on further about this, but I'm going to cut myself there. But yeah, I absolutely jive with that 110%.
Yeah, it is interesting to think about this kind of stuff. 'Cause, I've often thought about that. Like I said, I've been reading a lot of Harry Potter lately, so I've got a lot of magic stuff in my head, anyways. But it is interesting when you read this kind of stuff, and it does kind of make sense. Like the way that J.K. Rowling set up like the Harry Potter
Yeah.
universe, how like, the Muggles are,
Mm-hmm.
The non-magic folk,
Mm-hmm.
and it is very, very crazy to think about just how shut off and closed-minded we are, and we just reject any idea of something fantastical because there has to be an intelligent explanation behind it. But no, sometimes things just aren't explainable.
Right. No. Yeah, no.
Now, some New Age thinkers even believe that Bigfoot is a multidimensional being, able to step through different dimensions. Now, this is interesting because there are many accounts of Bigfoot being there and then just not being there, or vice versa. Not being there, then suddenly he's here. And just with no explanation, just he kind of weaves in and out of our reality, possibly. It's very interesting. I kind of touched on this throughout the episode. You look at Bigfoot, if you compare these two files, we had the previous episode where we talked about the Northwest or the Northeast, the North and the South, all those, and these like really isolated Bigfoot accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like this Bigfoot is like some rogue creature hell bent on just causing mayhem. It's stalking people in their homes and killing dogs and things of that sort. And they're like, it really does seem like they're these monsters, is how they're depicted. And if you look back on the last episode and you look at those accounts, they are like monsters. They're even called that. Falk monster, the Honey Island swamp monster, things like that. They are these like these ferocious beasts, these killers.
I like the mountain devils.
These things of nightmare.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, mountain devils. But if you like really look into accounts of Sasquatch in the Pacific Northwest, it's held up with this like reverence. It's feared, but yet it's respected, and it has it's treated as this like intelligent spiritual being rather than this rogue nightmare beast that we see a lot in the other legends throughout the South and stuff like that. The Northwest Sasquatch much more seems like this like stoic protector, this being that's far beyond our comprehension and intelligence. And it's this really interesting juxtaposition between these two, between this region and the rest of the United States, basically, of how it's looked upon, how it's viewed in the legends and lore that surround it. It's like, of course, it should be feared, but it's not some mindless killing machine.
Right. Like it has an intellect to it.
Yes, definitely. The Northwest Sasquatch has this like intellect about it, and it's respected by people, and that's what it demands, is like this respect of it and also its surroundings.
Oh yes. I wouldn't be shocked if like I really wouldn't be shocked if they were not only here for like thousands of years, but could live for longer than what humans can, like up into
Mhm.
like their hundreds, or dare I even say up into their thousands. Cause like, first of all, they're a giant freaking creature. They're absolutely monstrous, pun unintended, but like they're huge. So I mean, you automatically get like that sort of like pronounced like fear, and then like just attention onto it, and then like, you know, that age and that wisdom of, you know, something to be feared and respected. Like again, like you can fuck around, but you can also find out real quick. So I don't know. There's something divine isn't the right term, but something like divine adjacent, you know?
Absolutely. I think spirit, like this, like spirit of the forest, is a
Mhm.
great descriptor for these things. And people who have saw the creature, the Bigfoot, they have kind of described it, especially in the Northwest. I mean, a lot of people that see it elsewhere are like terrified, and it like haunts them for years. But people who have witnessed this thing out in the Pacific Northwest account it to be like this spiritual awakening. Like it like
Interesting.
changes their life. Like they become like in tune with things that they were never aware of before. They become much more spiritual, much more akin to the forest, and it's very interesting. You'll hear about these people that see it, and like they really have like experienced something deeper than just seeing this monster.
Well, now we gotta go out west. I got a spiritual journey to go
We've
on.
been saying that for a while. You need to go out west to
We're gonna go out west, just Ty and I.
go visit Mount Shasta. Anyways, there are some stuff too. I didn't really go too much into this because I mean I feel like there's probably meat on the bones for maybe a different episode at
Mhm.
some point. But there are like accounts of like Bigfoot and UFOs being related in some
Yes.
manner,
Mhm.
and people talk about Bigfoot being this multidimensional creature, and there are accounts of people seeing a UFO, then they see a Bigfoot later, or a Bigfoot, then they see a UFO later, things like that. And I read an interesting theory where it's like maybe they aren't directly related. Maybe it's not like Bigfoot is coming from the UFOs,
Mhm.
or UFOs are seeking out locations of Bigfoot. But an interesting theory I read was maybe they're both multidimensional uh, entities.
Nice.
These UFOs are using multidimensional travel to make their way to us, and and leave and things of that nature. And maybe the Sasquatch are kind of like piggybacking off that energy.
Mhm.
The UFOs are using this energy to travel between dimensions, and the Bigfoot has just kind of hopped along. And it's just
Yes. Yeah, I love it. You just kind of broke my brain a little bit. But like, yeah, because I said very, very early on, I think Bigfoot is an interdimensional creature. And like that honestly makes so much sense. So much
oh,
sense.
absolutely. I mean, it was just so cool to like in the course of these two files that I did here to like research all the stuff that took place across the rest of the United States, and reading all these isolated small town monster type things,
Mhm.
and then to go back and read these like Northwest Sasquatch lore, where it's just this ancient being that at one point seems like it kind of like lived hand in hand with humans.
It really does though. Like there is a law of knowledge about Sasquatch over in the West. So much that it really does beg that question. Like, did it live, you know, in a peaceful environment with humans at one point?
Yeah, so like it's cool to look back at things like the painted rock mural we talked about, where even that mural depicts like the family, the wild men,
Mhm.
interacting with Native Americans, and you have many stories like that throughout indigenous lore. So going back to what we talked about with the loss of connection to the forest, maybe our inability to just see these creatures at all times, or interact with them in
Mhm.
the ways that indigenous people did, is because we have lost that connection.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, favorite example I love to go to is like, Ty, have you ever tried meditating before?
No,
I love it. It's because we're so like, oh man, you should try meditating. First of all, it's
I don't have
fabulous.
time.
Yes,
I
you
would love to. I
do.
just never feel like I have time.
You have 2 minutes in a day.
Yeah,
Y-
I
you
definitely do.
you have 2 minutes in the day to just shut your eyes and just like be in perfect silence. And like it's gonna take and like it's so hard to like start meditating because everyone thinks like I have to be thinking of nothing and I have to be completely still. And like yes, you do, but it
Mhm,
also takes time to get to that place. But
mhm.
again on my technology rant, like we're so used to like being in the now and like TikTok and Instagram and X and all of these things that it's like it's so much harder for us now to just slow down and just
Oh,
be
absolutely,
still.
yeah.
And I think it's a
Yeah,
huge
'cause I
part. Go
yeah, 'cause
ahead.
I feel like if I have 2 free minutes, I'm on Instagram.
For real. Yeah, like same here. Like I call like I think my friend Jeff called it doom scrolling one point and like that's
Yes.
all I call it now. Um but I think that's a big part of the reason why we don't get to see the quote unquote magic and why, Sasquatch and Bigfoot like they don't come near us anymore is because like part of them probably knows like fuck if I get caught I'm going to be all over Twitter the next day like
Yeah.
so I don't know.
Well,
Maybe they don't know. Maybe it's I don't know. I don't know.
I remember hearing like a theory a while back, and it's spotty, so I don't have like the full thing, but like that they're like here, like like they're there's more of them than we can imagine. They're in the woods, or they're populating the woods, but we just can't see them because of our loss of connection to that spiritual world. Like they're living amongst us. The woods are uh, there's Bigfoot creatures walking the trails,
Yeah.
and we just cannot comprehend because we've lost that part of ourselves. We can't comprehend them. Our brains refuse to acknowledge them,
Oh yeah.
and the times when you do see a Sasquatch is like you just momentarily, like you slip back into that part of your brain. You reveal that reality,
Oh man.
and then it's there. They're gone. You snap back,
Mhm.
and you don't see them anymore.
I totally believe it. I absolutely believe it. That feeds my conspiracy brain so much. Mm.
But that's all I've got about the Northwest Sasquatch. Obviously, there's a bunch more I could go into on it.
That's beautiful.
I think there's some interesting like things to really dissect, and it was super interesting. So I've always known of Bigfoot. He's my favorite cryptid. I have him tattooed on me. He's just something that I've loved since I was a kid. I talk about it all the time. People ask me like, "Do you believe in Sasquatch?" I do, and people ask me why I don't have more things. I also believe in aliens and
Mhm.
things of that nature. But I think Bigfoot is just a perfect representation of all that for me, because it's this unknown figure.
Oh yeah.
I think to me, the Bigfoot represents just everything. It represents aliens. It represents Mothman. It represents Jersey Devil, the Loveland Frog. It represents all these things that I believe,
Oh
and it's
yeah.
just in one thing because it's all this unknown, unexplained stuff. So my favorite cryptid, I've always known about Bigfoot, always loved researching Bigfoot, but I've never done it in this kind of way where I've looked at different regions,
Oh
and
yeah.
that was really unique to do, to explore all the different variations and to kind of put this picture together that like it's not just a Bigfoot. There's these different like subspecies, and that was really fun.
This is cool. Like you did a beautiful job on this, first of all. Um,
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Like this like I said, it's really like a road trip of Bigfoots because there are so many, like you said, different species and like especially in the ways that it's handled. Like yes, we have like a base for how most people handle sightings of a Bigfoot, but there's like little different variations, kind of like with the different species as well, in different parts of the country where people handle seeing a Bigfoot a little bit differently in each region, which is really interesting because I think that can also point to the frequency of sightings in that area too.
Mhm.
Like, because in the West, people seem to be a little bit more calm about it than like in the East or the South. Uh,
Yeah,
um,
or we freak out and call it a monster.
yeah,
Like
where
if
we're
we
like,
see it,
"Oh
yeah,
my god!"
yeah,
So we're in the West, they're like, it's just Biggie, he's fine."
right.
Like, but this is awesome. This is so cool. I would love to see this come back. This is really, really cool. And like, guys, everyone listening, I would highly, highly, highly encourage you guys go to the was it 2023 New Year's encounters that we did?
Yeah, yeah. First
Yes.
The first episode of 2023 was our encounters.
Our encounters. And Ty has a Bigfoot encounter that actually still to this day kind of scares the bejesus out of me. I'm sure you were fine through it. It didn't, inherit any childhood trauma or anything. You were just like, oh, okay.
No,
cool.
for a while it did. For a while I was terrified of the woods for a while.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, but like that is such a good one too. And like it like from talking about it all the way over to like experience the sighting, like it really does like kind of bring it all into full circle. But this was amazing. This was so beautiful. Ty, this was awesome.
Thank you. That's what I want to do for a while. I've had this idea for a while. Like I wanted to do like a multi-part series of just like focusing on like do like a Falcon Monster episode or a Honey Island Swamp Monster episode. But it just worked out just to do it all together, and also because you get that comparison from legend to legend, which is really cool to do. To hear them in succession like that, to research them in succession like that, because you could pick up on all the little subtle like differences and variations, how the regions react to them, which was cool. But yeah, the Northwest Sasquatch, it's by far like the king of Sasquatches. It is Bigfoot out there. In the most purest form. I feel like all the other ones just like these weird like subspecies like offshoots of Bigfoot, but out in the Northwest we have like the pure blood Sasquatch.
These are just Muggle knockoff Sasquatches out here.
Yeah, they're all mud blooded, but like I feel like they like out west we have this like purebred like creature that has this like intellect and this like spiritual nature about it. Whereas the other ones have kind of become more animalized, and they are in fact like beasts and monsters and wild men and things like that. But out west, it seems like it's just this creature, this species that we've just kind of lost sight of. We've lost our ability to connect with, which is a shame. But it was super cool to go about that. Like I said, I didn't touch on all like the UFO stuff because there was just so much just to investigate on the surface level of just this thing, without getting into all that. But yeah, super interesting. At some point, I'll edit these 2 episodes together just for the hell of it.
Oh, yes, you absolutely should.
I'll do a compilation at some point. But, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, that does it for me. That's File 041 in the books. The Shadow Giants, Mysteries of the Northwest Sasquatch. Hope you guys have enjoyed this little series. We have one more episode coming up here in a couple weeks. We're going to do one of our encounters episodes and go over Bailey and I both have an encounter.
Oh, yes.
If you guys have been following us for a while, you know what the encounters are. I give one, Bailey gives one, vice versa. I have a good one lined up for that. Bailey's got a good one lined up for it, I'm sure, as well.
Might be a little familiar to something.
Ooh, excellent. Excellent. But yeah, that does it for us, guys. This has been a fun month to do. Like I said, it's a long time coming. We went a long time without really putting Bigfoot in the forefront, and gave him his whole whole month just dedicated to him.
Oh yeah, this has been fun. This has been a lot of fun too, like learning about it, because I didn't really know a whole lot about Sasquatch and Bigfoot, and getting to do this. And of course, you and I have had conversations off air where we've talked about it too. So getting to kind of do like this all over the country, here are the different types of Bigfoot. Like, it's been very educational.
yeah, good. But make sure you guys keep an ear out for the next episode here for April, our big Bigfoot month that came about. The encounters episodes are always super fun to do. I'm really excited to hear what Bailey presents. I'm really excited to tell my encounter that I've got lined up. That's gonna be fun. But yeah, make sure you guys check out part 1 of this if you haven't. They're definitely like made to be listened to in succession. So if you haven't already, go back and listen to number 1, part 1, file 040. Check out my encounter back on the very first episode of 2023. It's called Our Encounters. That's a fun one.
It's really cool.
And there's also some Bigfoot stuff in the iceberg videos we did, iceberg episodes we did last month. So.
He gets brought up, I think, in both icebergs, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. In both parts, he gets brought up in some form or fashion. So check those out. We're going to be kicking things back to normal here next month, back to our usual shtick. So if you don't like the April stuff, we'll be back to normal next month.
Yeah.
But follow us at Cult Talk Net across the board: Instagram, Twitter, X, Facebook, YouTube, all the things. Make sure you guys give us a follow on there to keep up with all this stuff, because Cult Talk Net as a whole, we have a lot of things all the time. This year, we've talked about it before, is just we have so much stuff coming out this year that's going to be a lot different than what we've done in past years. So we've already done it here at Cult Talk Conspiracy with doing the iceberg videos.
Oh, yes.
Or the iceberg episodes, and then doing this like themed month at the beginning of the year. So we're already trying some different stuff, talking about other things than conspiracies and more about the unknown. Make sure you guys follow Cult of Lore. They come out every first and third Thursday of the month, and you guys check out youtube.com/culttalknet for the full video experience. They work really hard on that. And Cult of Campbell, it's still around. It comes out randomly. We just did a virtual Bruce Fest, which was an absolute blast. Yeah, absolute blast. So check out those episodes if you guys missed it. Sorry about your luck. Maybe next year.
Yeah.
But check out Cult of Campbell. It's still around. Comes out on Mondays when it feels like it.
When the king feels like making an appearance.
when the king feels like making an appearance. Yeah, live a diva sometimes. And we have a ton of extra things. Just make sure you guys follow at Cult Talk Net for all the extra stuff. We usually do things during the summer. Of course, Culttober Plus, where we put all of our horror movie reviews. That gets an episode every final Friday. So it gets updated pretty regularly. So check out Culttober Plus. But that does it for us, Bailey. That was part 2, file 041 of our Bigfoot series. And we'll be back here on the 30th for the Encounters episode. There we have it. I've been Ty.
I've been Bailey.
And until next time, question everything.